Last week I was touring someone and the group home owners said they wouldn't raise prices because that was important to my client.
Yeah.
And I said, are you going to put that in a contract?
Right.
And that was my real estate brain
writing.
talking. And she kind of looked at me and she goes, well, I can for 3 years.
Let's talk Tales.
Today's Tales with Taylor guest has a passion for helping seniors and their families find reputable senior living homes in Phoenix and the Valley area. She carefully takes into consideration care needs, desired location, and budget. Her free service, yes, I said free, includes recommending multiple options and touring with families so their senior loved ones receives care in an environment that can include activities, therapy, and nutritious meals. It's Heather Hildreth. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Taylor?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
So tell me the tale that brought you to this profession. We all have choices. We could be doing 1.5 million different things.
Yes.
What was the tale that brought you to where you are?
Well, I think I've always really enjoyed the relationships I've had with the senior population. It started years back when I was a kid, and my grandparents lived on a farm in Iowa, where I'm from, and I would go visit them in the summer, sometimes spend weeks at a time up there doing things like collecting eggs with my grandma. She was the egg lady in town.
Yeah.
Collect the eggs and wash them off and put them in the little egg crates that her clients would give back to her when we took the eggs to town. So maybe that's part of the reason I'm a business person as well, right? She was a really great, strong person on the farm. And then my granddad had mules, which was kind of what he was known for in this small town. So just lots of great memories with my grandparents. My parents now are in their mid-80s, and so love the relationship I have with them. I'm very blessed that overall they're quite healthy still. And my mom is so active that a couple of weeks ago, she went to Nashville with me and my daughters. And so she was able to keep up with us.
Wow.
That love I have for seniors has carried on with the senior clients that I meet when I help them find assisted living. And also my background is in real estate. I have a background for 20 years. I don't really do real estate in the traditional sense anymore, but it helps with negotiating the terms and the price when I can for my clients as well. So it's just a good fit.
Yeah, and you understand location's so key too with living. Having that real estate background, I'm sure, does help in how you look at a space for a home.
It really does. When it comes to what's important, people think, what's the price, what's the location? But it's important to realize that care is the most important factor. And that's how it's different than real estate. When I first got into this business over 10 years ago, I worked in several communities, senior living communities. And so I know what they will do. There's often some wiggle room with price. And I know that because of my experience. And I also know about care, even though I'm not, I don't have a medical background, but I know what the differences are. Like if someone needs more attention to care, maybe a group home, a smaller setting would be better. If they want a more independent lifestyle with care available and lots of activities, then maybe a more vibrant assisted living community would be the best fit.
When should someone reach out to you? At what point in the stage should someone start reaching out to you to get assistance in finding a home for their loved one?
Well, that's a really good question because it's important that they contact a senior advisor like myself first, because the good news is we can offer this service for free at no charge to the client because we're compensated a percentage of the rent by the communities and homes. But we can't represent them if we contact them and they say, oh, they already reached out to us, they're in our system. So as I mentioned, the value in using my services is I'm going to make calls and set up tours. Sometimes, usually I can tour with someone, ask the right questions. So to answer your question, contact me first. And if you think that you or a loved one may go into a assisted living environment, a senior living environment. Maybe it won't be for 5 years, but you have no idea what is out there. Maybe you're thinking, oh, my grandma was in a nursing home, 30 years ago. It's nothing like that. So just to get fresh in your mind what's out there and, utilize my services, we'll take some tours, and then maybe you won't even end up moving at all or for a long time. But when things happen that require care, often it happens fast. There could be a decline because of an event, we call it. It could be a stroke, a fall. And if you end up, you're independent at home, you go to the hospital, you go to skilled nursing, now your discharge date is coming, and you're scrambling to find a place. That's more difficult. I do it, and I'm able to do it quickly, but if it can be a little more relaxed where you can go, oh, a year ago I toured a place I liked.
Got it. So it could be a
better.
year, two, and maybe you're not even in the market yet to have a
Completely.
placement, but you want to have a plan. It's still beneficial to reach out to you.
That's right.
Tour, get an idea so you have that plan when
Yes.
something, will eventually happen of some sort.
Right.
And I luckily had the pleasure of, visiting and seeing some of the places that you've helped people find homes in.
Yes.
And these are not those nursing homes that I was
No.
forced to go to and chorus and like touch the hands and sing to those, those
right.
seniors. These
Yes.
are some like very
Oh.
nice, like I
Yes.
almost want to live there myself
Oh,
now. And
completely.
at this age,
Yes.
there are activities that are going on.
Yes.
So, speak to people who maybe don't know the world
Uh-huh.
of senior living. Like, what are some activities that some of the, seniors you've placed are able to experience?
Yeah, in this industry, we sort of refer to it as, it's almost like if you've ever gone on a cruise, where, what do you want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? There's restaurant style dining at a lot of senior living communities. Sometimes there's 10 activities a day, depending on where you go. And you're not going to want to probably do every time they have a movie in the theater or a happy hour with live music and games like bingo and other, maybe outings. But at least you have the choice. So a lot of the people that I work with that are in this industry have shared that, like we have a joke where we've picked out the home or the community we want to go to, right? And we'll say, you can be my roommate.
So what are some of the features that you particularly look for, if it was yourself? Obviously, you put into consideration the specific needs of each family.
Yes.
But, you yourself, someone who perhaps, is just looking for a space, what are some of those key, features that you look for in a facility?
Yes. Well, I think that you can tell from the first time you tour whether you're walking into a larger community. The difference between a senior living community, it looks like almost like an apartment. Often, it's big. There's a front desk. You're going down the hall. Usually, sometimes they have outdoor access, but that's larger. And a group home is smaller. It's literally a house that's been set up for senior living with caregivers and meals and all that. But what I look for is how are you treated the second you walk in? Is the front desk concierge? They like to call themselves. It's not receptionist anymore, but they how are you greeted? Are you offered a cup of coffee? You can tell often, with the management team, if they are stressed out and they don't seem friendly, maybe that could mean that there's problems with communication. So starting out, I would just check the friendliness of the staff. The same thing holds true with a group homeowner. Do they seem to just love what they do? Are they in it for the right reasons? And then beyond that, I would take a look at the space. Are there little areas where you could go to get away into a corner where there's like, a puzzle set up, or is there a backyard with a nice covered patio and you can go out there and have, a soda in the afternoon and relax? And, are the apartments or the rooms a fit for what would be the good, the best style for you? And also, as I mentioned, care is the most important thing. So I would say, ask those questions about, if I decline, can I stay here, or do I have to move to a different part of the building, if I'm pretty independent, then do I have to move to an assisted living, or can I just age in place here without ever moving until the very end of my life? Can I just stay here so I don't have to worry about a move again?
Yeah, that sounds like the convenient option. And I do love your suggestion of what you said of just like, how are you treated? Obviously the amenities and, the types of care are also important, but just the general, how do they treat you the moment you meet them?
Yes.
That reminds me of when my husband and I were looking for a school for our daughter. And there was one, walk away right up the street from our house. And we visited it pre-COVID, or right when COVID was kind of spicing up. And they were all stressed out. They were angry. And we're like, okay, well, maybe it was because of COVID. So then we visited after the fact. We were treated the exact same way. So we're like, okay, these people are just
it's just
not,
the energy.
Yeah, it's just
just
the energy.
that.
We were like, we have to get out of this building as fast as possible. There's no way we're letting her go here. But it's so true how so much you can take in from just that treatment. Yeah. Do they offer you water or coffee? Do they greet you with a smile? Do they even greet you at all and notice you're there?
Right. How are they interacting with residents if they come up and need something?
Or fellow staff members, peeking in on how do they treat their fellow staff. So those little nuances can really give you an insight to the living, features that would
the
be
environment.
there. Yeah, excellent.
Yes.
And I would love to know the tale behind your actual brand. How did you choose your brand name and brand colors?
Okay, sure. Well, I love birds, obviously, with a name like Arizona Songbird.
Yeah.
And a few years back, I ended up living for a while out in East Mesa, and I backed to the untamed desert. And when I say the untamed desert, there wasn't a fence.
The Superstition Mountains and everything.
It was that area, yes.
Excellent. Yeah,
and,
so beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And it's just, you can't believe the birds that were out there. I mean, I saw cardinals pretty frequently, which we don't see a lot of those here in town, but great horned owls, a family made its home very near my house. I mean, I could just see them all the time. Open the door, and there was a great horned owl family. And at the time, I loved taking photos. I still do, but I had a Canon Rebel, and I went out. I took thousands of pictures of these great horned owls, the babies, and then after they flew the nest, they still interacted with mom and dad, both involved, and they'd fly from tree to tree, and they're making their little racket. It reminded me of, it's funny, a great horned owlet, that's flown the nest, that's a little bit older. They make a cheap, like a cheap, similar to a little chick, like a baby chicken. And I, said I have some experience with chickens from my grandma's farm, but it's just a louder, cheap. And they'll do that as they call mom and dad to bring them, whatever little rodent or something, something
food,
to eat. Yeah. And so that goes on. And I had to laugh thinking of my own daughters, and after they flew the nest, how they still are like cheap, once in a while, needing something from mom.
Yeah.
But that's the reason behind the bird. And I've had people reach out to me and say, we have a list of several placement agents that have been referred, but we contacted you because we love birds also.
Oh, awesome. Well,
So,
and it definitely feels Arizona looking at it, having the copper colors and the turquoise. So
I thought that's what I kind of thought too. And I have hummingbird feeders all around my house, and I love going out with my cat in the morning and watching the hummers go back and forth. And so if I'm touring a place, I'll often, if I see a window right by a room and it's on the ground floor, I'll say, oh, you could put a hummingbird feeder right here, and I just think that it adds a lot to life, They're just so fun to watch.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's definitely, it looks just so welcoming, and it definitely with the imagery, you see that it's like a home and within Arizona. So it's very lovely. And what would you say then, other than the love of birds, would be some things that separate you from, other, placement agents?
Well, for one thing, as I mentioned, I have experience working in a community. And so I would say when you're choosing a senior living advisor, ask what their credentials are. Because in addition to my experience, in the community, I have my license through the NCIA board, and that's a nursing care administrative board where if I wanted to be like, say, the executive director at a community, that's required. It's a license through the state. That means you have 1,000+ hours in this industry working with seniors. You have to go through quite a few classes, coursework, and then pass tests. And then you're also, you have a background check and that type of thing. And that allows you to, they say, hang your license is how they word it, at a group home. And so I do that in 2 group homes. One is in Mesa and one is in Scottsdale.
Got it.
And it doesn't mean that I'm there every day because there's an operations manager, there are caregivers, but I'll check periodically, every few months, every month, every few months, just go through the paperwork and make sure we're in compliance with the Department of Health Services for when they show up to do an inspection. And so I think that background sets me apart because, boy, do I ever set the standards high, because things better be run like they are at the group homes where I have my manager's license. And then in addition to that, I'm a member of Passers, and that's a professional agency for placement agents that, it was created to set a higher standard for this senior living industry, which is growing out here, as you can imagine, with the seniors they come here to retire, and then as they age, they may need senior living. And so that, and then just the fact that I will tour with people. I also follow up after someone moves in. Sometimes it's kind of like the end of the journey for a placement agent. Your relationship is just, they move in, nice knowing you. Not me. I follow up, every month or two, see how things are going.
Wow.
I'll take a sandwich to the family. Like sometimes I'll run by Subway and then just see how things are going. Next week, I have a lady that just moved in to a group home, and I asked her daughter this morning, is there a treat? She's gluten-free and I said, is there a treat that I could bring by? And she said, oh, Nothing Bundt Cakes has a gluten-free cake. I'm like, I didn't know that. Right. I'm going to pick one of those up for myself too. And so I'll go by and pay her a visit. And her, I had a great connection with this lady that needed to be placed. She actually has a nursing background, and she's amazing. It was very fun talking to her. So I have a lot of great connections with both the clients and their adult kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is excellent. There's a lot of different things that separate you from other placement agents for sure.
Yeah.
And, some of the audience here are people who, are trying to actually grow and build their own business. And so what would be some advice you would have to someone who may be new to this industry in order to be, as awesome and as successful as you are?
Well, that's a great question. And do you mean specifically the senior advisor
within the senior advising type of industry? Yeah.
Yes.
If someone was interested in that. If they said, I'm tired of the real estate grind and just, buying and selling houses. I want to have more meaning. I'm sure when you help, a senior find a home that might actually become their forever home, there's probably a bit of extra, gratitude that you have to be a part of that person's journey in that sense. And so if someone wants that transition similar to what you did, what would be your advice for people in that situation?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because when I worked in a community, I would often train, someone to work kind of as my assistant, because I was a sales and marketing manager. And so I remember this one person that has gone on to be to work in another community. I mean, she's kind of stayed with working as a salesperson, but she always, whenever I tour at her community, she says, I remember when I first interviewed with you, you said, this is going to be a great fit. And I could just tell from her personality alone, even though at that time she had a background with, I think, the restaurant business, but just like
hospitality.
Yeah. She was friendly. And just like what you said, I just had a connection. She just had a warmth, and she asked a lot of questions, and you could just tell she would be a good person to advise someone on probably, anything that, once she got to know sort of the details of what they were looking for. So I'd say just you have to sincerely want to help people, and not only people, but with people our aging population, you have to be a little more patient, right? Because they often say, I just want to stay home. I'm fine. So you have to be able to help them and their families who often feel guilty. Like, I want them to stay home too, but they're not safe. So you just have to be patient if you're getting into this type of work. And then I would say just to educate yourself as much as possible through networking and belonging to, like, say, this pastor's organization. They always have networking groups. They keep us informed on any changes in regulations and with the Department of Health. So just make sure that you've got that piece just so you can best represent someone, and then just kind of go out there and do go the extra mile. I know that not all the placement agents, they don't always tour with people. I mean, I do that just because
that's why you should choose Heather if you're going to, use anyone.
Yes, I think it makes a difference to be beside someone. And I have a little booklet that is on my website, and it's a guide to navigating senior living. And in there it says what to ask on a tour. And there's dozens of questions. And so I would, it's helpful when I'm there and I'm touring with someone, they're using those questions. And then if I have a question, like last week I was touring someone, and the group home owner said they wouldn't raise prices because that was important to my client. Yeah. And I said, are you going to put that in the contract?
Right.
And that was my realistic brain talking. And she kind of looked at me and she goes, well, I can for 3 years, and I was thinking, like, I get it that the cost of living can go up a lot.
Oh, yeah. The cost of everything goes up.
Completely. But, she said she wouldn't raise the price. So I said, you got to put that in writing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's watching out for your clients right there. And
yes.
My goodness, I can just imagine the, different people you've met and the different tales of their lives that you've heard. Tell me a tale of, someone you were able to help and, just someone that was just really interesting and stuck with you.
Okay, sure. Well, I've got one, and gosh, it'll be hard for me not to get emotional because this was the sweetest lady, and she actually, she was Italian, and she was in her 90s, and she was in a independent living community in Scottsdale, and she was getting dementia to where she was paranoid, and then she was feeling that the residents were stealing from her, and so the community just contacted me, and they said, she can't stay here because we can't have other residents moving out, and we don't think she's safe. I mean, she might wander away from the property and not be safe. So I would tour with her, and she was resistant to it, and she had an adult son, but he was, you could tell he knew she was such a strong lady, and she had an opinion. And so,
an Italian woman, it's hard to budge.
Yes. But, oh boy, for probably 3 months or 4 months, usually it's not, usually it doesn't take that long. Usually someone tours a few places within a few weeks, makes a decision if they're ready to move. But boy, I had to be patient, and the community was pretty close to saying, hey, we're, somebody's got to pick her up kind of a thing. But thank God she ended up selecting one of the group homes. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was a beautiful community in Scottsdale, and she could afford it was the thing.
Yeah.
And so I would go to visit her after she moved in, and I could just tell her clothes were clean. And she was always dressed to the nine and bragging about how her shoes were from Italy. But, she was more cleaned up. I could just tell her hair was done better. And it's so fulfilling to know that you've made a difference in someone's life and given them some maybe happy moments by moving her in somewhere where the activities are a match for someone specifically with dementia and Alzheimer's. So she was very happy, and it made my heart happy.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Unlike just the regular real estate, which is still great. You're helping people move into homes or sell their home. But yeah, something about, I think that, senior placement, especially a scenario like that where what was she going to do if you didn't find a place that would be a good fit? So that's
I do know, actually. I do know what was about to happen. And that would be that there would have been some steps taken and she could have ended up in maybe a group home that was run by the state.
Ooh, okay.
And they, it would have been under the same guidelines as per the Department of Health Services. But I'm telling you, this lady could afford almost anything in Scottsdale. So between a fabulous community, with just the best of the best, or a state-run group home, which is where she was headed if I wouldn't have been persistent.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, just the type of living, your lifestyle,
Yeah, having
is affected. Yeah.
That's right. And I think that it's important to realize that when you move into assisted living, it's not the end of you ever being happy. I mean, you have to realize that sometimes people are truly having some of the best moments of their life. Maybe they've isolated themselves at home for a very long time, or even in a room, their small apartment, either at an independent living or just an apartment somewhere. And then suddenly they're going to the activities because, and I'll have the adult kids sometimes say, oh, mom or dad, they are not going to participate in any of these activities. They like to keep to themselves. And then they move in and they're just loving everything, because they get comfortable. They meet a few friends.
Amongst their peers, I know my grandmother loved the assisted living that she, ended up passing at. Like it was, she was just doing all the, things with girlfriends, playing cards.
Yes.
Or, just having that bit of a camaraderie that, it's so much easier when, you're all there together and you can still have your private living quarters and it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. So that is wonderful. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to know, what is your favorite tale you've ever read or heard? So like, what's your favorite book or movie?
My favorite book or movie ever?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. You should say that. Well, it's so funny because I just saw something that Jaws, I think, is turning. Could it be 50? Is that right? Or maybe I can't remember, but.
It's old though, yeah.
Yes. And I saw the movie Jaws with my dad. And my dad's an awesome person. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's still doing very well. But, oh boy, we went and saw that. And I just remember being so scared and kind of in a fun way afterwards, as many people can relate that are in their maybe 50s, give or take a decade. If you're a kid, you saw Jaws and then going into the pool or swimming in the lake afterwards, you're just like, out of your mind thinking about that shark under the water. And with summer coming up, it's funny you should say that because it has nothing to do with, senior living. But I was just thinking, wow, Jaws is one of my favorite movies. I can still watch it and just enjoy watching it again, and get scared again.
So you think Steven Spielberg made the right choice in not worrying about the overly expensive shark and just don't show the shark?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I think he had all kinds of problems with the mechanics of that.
Yeah. And so that's why they ended up like having to nix it mostly. It was either like you keep kind of going at it, try to fix it, or, just only show it at the end,
Yeah, because I think it was the suspense, right, that was really more terrifying than anything, and just showing from the shark's perspective with that da-dum.
Yeah, that music
such
is
a thrill.
Just so classic. Yeah.
Yes.
And so what about books? Are there any books that have helped you, either in your career development or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, there is a book. Think Like a Monk, Jay Shetty. Okay. Jay Shetty is very popular these days because he has a podcast, and but he started out, he was very raised by a well-to-do family in England. I believe it was London. And they said, you can either be a doctor or a lawyer or nothing. They just had such high expectations for him. So, he goes to school and, he's got friends, majoring in law or medicine. And then in college, he saw a monk speak and he was so interested in it. And then he would start being a monk in the summers when he wasn't in college. After he graduated from college, he goes to be a monk full time. So I didn't know much about, what does a monk do? Yeah. But it's funny because when I lived close to the Arizona desert and I found all that tranquility with my songbirds, and oh my gosh, the Arizona desert is just such a place of tranquility. It's so quiet at night and it's just so, it's full of life, but it's like you have to look pretty closely because it looks like there's nothing unless you're patient. You really look out there. But Jay Shetty, he just got, he just learned so much just about being silent and meditation. I guess that book has helped me with, if I have a lot on my list, of what to do in the mornings, if I can just calm down and go in my front porch, watch my hummingbirds, try to quiet my monkey mind, they call it, where you're like, so that book helped a lot. And then he decided to not continue with being a monk, but someone had said you can go further by sharing your story. And boy, has he ever done that.
So interesting. So think like a monk. So it just helped you just with silencing your monkey mind, or your monkey brain, and just get more centered in things.
Yeah, and you realize you really are going to be more productive, and will have more of a peaceful balance if you can do nothing. You might think, oh my gosh, I can't afford to do nothing. I'm so far behind. But if you're just spinning in circles because you're worried about your schedule, and then you're worried what's traffic going to be if I head here or there, it's just
That's so true.
It's really helpful. And I think it makes me better for my clients when I come from a place of peace and love, like Jay Shetty has talked about, it's all about really the love and loving each other and one another, even whether we're a stranger, a friend, or a family member, because it's a stressful time, when you have to move, whether you're 20 or 90.
Oh, moving's the worst. It can be exciting once you're done and you can celebrate, but in the midst, moving feels like one of the worst activities of life.
Yes. And compound that with being older and maybe having some pain, and then things are out of your control a little bit. So
and if it's not really your choice that you want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, the emotions that you have to deal with. So I'm sure you're kind of like a borderline like psychiatrist too within the process.
It happens like that, yes. And I'm happy to do that. It's just all about talking to people and listening.
And so how far spread out of the valley do you serve? Because we've mentioned a little bit about Scottsdale. You've mentioned how you lived in Mesa. So if someone is, looking to relocate to Arizona, if they're not, originally from here, it's a great option. I'm from the East Coast originally, and I would definitely tell anyone choose Arizona over Florida because I don't want to deal with that humidity and
everything. And the alligators.
I remember visiting my grandparents when they were in Florida and just seeing an alligator in their back, and I was just like, "That's just on the lawn. Like, is that real?"
I would never go outside.
They didn't. It's not, just don't go up to it. It's fine.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. So if someone was even considering, okay, I want to find a good home for my loved one, Arizona seems like it could be a good space. It's can be more affordable than California. It has better weather, in my opinion, than Florida. How far in the valley can you help someone?
Well, really, I say valley-wide, and that's true. I mean, I've helped people from, Scottsdale, way up north Scottsdale, all the way down to Maricopa, and then from Apache Junction all the way to the west side, Glendale.
Oh, wow. So you can really even help people then match their activities and their desires. Because Apache is similar more to like your desolate desert. You're kind of more open spaces. I'm sure it feels you see more of the mountains versus someone maybe in Old Town or Mid Scottsdale. You're going to feel more of that city vibe. So you can even then help advise people in what would be a best fit for them.
Yes. And not only that, though, if they really were not selective about the part of the valley, we would take the budget into consideration because in Scottsdale, in general, the pricing is higher than, say, maybe in the Apache Junction area or even Queen Creek. The funny thing is, though, it's just like real estate. It's catching up everywhere where it's kind of consistently. And if you're, if you have great care and a view of the Superstition Mountains, and you're probably not going to be going out to clubs all the time. So who cares if you're in AJ or Scottsdale? A lot of it depends, though, on if friends or family are in a certain part of town and they want mom or dad or a loved one within, 10-minute drive or so. Yeah,
which tends to be the request. I know with my parents, they definitely wanted to stay somewhere that was in 15, 20 minutes away from us and, be easier to see grandkids and things of that sort.
Another thing to take into consideration is if they want to stay, continue with doctors that they have in an area where they live, then that would be a factor in moving them to keeping them within the same zip code. A lot of group homes and communities have on-site physicians, and physical therapy will come in as needed. Hospice comes in no matter where you are. But if you have a specialist like a cardiologist or other specialist that you want to stay fairly close to, that's a factor.
Yeah, and if you don't have one, and like Arizona, seems to have some of the best doctors. We have the Mayo Clinic up north in Scottsdale and so forth. So if someone was new to the Valley and, found this and was like, okay, I think Arizona's a great place, what would be a place that you particularly like? Which area of the Valley do you particularly like? Is it still East Mesa, AJ with the Superstition Mountains? Do you like Scottsdale or?
Well, I would have to say that, Scottsdale, and this is
if money wasn't a factor too. Let's say if money wasn't a factor.
Money's no object.
Yes.
Well, you're going to find some of the most fabulously decorated communities and group homes, maybe in Scottsdale, I would say. Some of the group homes have, 1+ acres. So that's nice. When a group home, you can go out and literally there's, bunnies, hopping around. And you see that too sometimes in other parts of the Valley as well. But I just toured a place in Scottsdale that has, I think she's got 3 houses on one street that are all that 1.25 acres. And, they would just be multi-million-dollar properties. I mean, they are. And she's been in the business a long time, and just they're fabulous just because they're so spacious and so many little areas where residents can go. As I mentioned, like they don't have to stay cooped up in one room. They can go here or there and either mix it up with people or be alone. And some of the communities that are more pricey, boy, they are fabulous. And the joke is, again, with my friends in this industry, is like, can we move in right now?
Right.
Right.
You're just doing some R&D, just some R&D.
Exactly.
We can, really talk about the experience when you're trying to help with the placement.
True. Well, price is a factor. I mean, as I mentioned, you're going to pay more often for something like that. We should talk a little about price. I do have some resources that I'd like to share when the cost of senior living is something that people are concerned with. I'd say that in general, I think that I've read that the average price of senior living in Phoenix is maybe $4,500 to $5,500 in that. Now, you got to realize that care makes the price go up or down thousands of dollars. You can move into a community for $3,500, but that doesn't include any care. And a lot of the times care costs can add, you need, med management. Well, that's almost $1,000 because they have to have a med tech 3 times a day visiting you. So the costs go up quite a bit. Whereas a group home, they take a look at the big picture and they say, here's your price. And that's it. Whereas in a community, it could be that it's, $4,000 one month, and then you have an event like a fall, and then boom, it's up to $3,000 or more. So keep that in mind. But as far as the resources go, for veterans, there is something called VA aid in attendance. And that means that if they meet a certain criteria, then they could qualify to get a contribution that'll go towards assisted living. Okay. And that, I don't want to say the amounts because it depends on a few factors, but it would significantly contribute to the cost for them and their surviving spouse. And if you go to my website, arizonasongbird.com, the resources tab, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a direct link to VA aid and attendance. And so they can select that and reach out to someone and talk. And there's also a program out here that is called ALTEX, Arizona Long-Term Care Systems. And what that is for low-income seniors. If they fall under a certain, monthly income as well as assets, have low assets, then they may qualify for a contribution that could mostly cover senior living as well.
Okay.
And in that guide I mentioned that's on the first page of my website, I have some creative ways that some clients have, like say if somebody has some equity in their home, they could always take out a home equity line of credit. I've had, clients do that to pay for some of the costs. Sometimes the family members will contribute to the costs, and you'd have to talk to a tax advisor, but some of that may be a tax write-off as well.
Okay. Those are all great things. And we'll make sure that if you go to the Tales with Taylor site, we'll have all these links in the show notes. That way you can just directly connect with that. That's definitely, anywhere where you can save money is always a nice benefit. That's for sure.
Yes.
And so along those lines too, what are some other like paperwork, or what are some things that people should already have organized and prepared to start working with you or start placing? Like, do they need to have, medical history in case they are going into a space with a new doctor facility? What are some of those things that would just make the process smoother and easier to transition?
Well, keep in mind that the group home management team, as well as the assisted living management team, is already pretty experienced with this. And so they're going to there is a document where a doctor has to sign off that assisted living is a good match for their patient. So that's often something that can hold up the process a little because, doctors are so busy. But once that is signed, then a medical history, yes, that's important that the medications, the doctor can also supply that. They're going to write down what medications the future resident is on. I have done this very quickly before, especially if a nurse in a skilled nursing recommends me and they have the patient, and then at discharge, they will just email over to the selected group home manager the paperwork that's needed, and they go back and forth, and it can happen pretty quickly. A TB test is required also. Okay. And so sometimes the home or community will allow someone to move in. Really, the thing is you get a little, prick on your skin, and then it has to be read a couple days later. So there's a little bit of a lag time there. So just kind of have a knowledge of, did I have that done? Often if you've been in the hospital or something, you've had that done. And then there'll be a contract and I'm happy to review that with you as well to make sure that the terms are based on what we talked about. So that's something that needs to be signed by the senior or the power of attorney. And then now that I'm bringing up POA, that's also important if you are if you're mom or dad or a family member is going to depend on you. And even if they haven't brought it up, it's important. Like I had mentioned that story about the lady from Italy, that paperwork was not put in place. And so as someone slides into dementia, and it can be a very, very slow little slide, they get less trusting and they don't want to give someone control, even if it's their own kids.
Especially if it's their own kid. No.
Sometimes that's the case, yes. But I would just encourage the people helping seniors to let them know, do you want me to be the person that is going to head up your care, or do you want to just leave it in the hands of, would it be like if you weren't able to make decisions on your own, do you want maybe the doctors to have to figure it out? Or like I said, that, a state-run group home, that's what it's going to come to because someone's resistant. So yeah, there's a few things to keep in mind there.
And if someone finds themselves in that situation, do you have recommendations to good attorneys or people to help them with, becoming a, POA?
So I think that Legal Shield provides a free POA form or guidance if you sign on with them, and then you can pay, it's just a few, it's not that expensive. It's a monthly amount, and then you could cancel it eventually.
We did Legal Shield when we first started our business in 2014, had them look at our talent release form, our other contracts, just did a contract review. We maybe were with them for 3 months, worth of time to get some contracts reviewed. And then, we canceled. And, it's been great because those contracts are still solid to this day.
True.
So,
I would say you could do that. And then there's also there's a few places, like if you reached out to me, I could, depending on what part of town, I do know I'd have to check kind of my messages here and there, or notes I've taken from networking that I've done where people specialize in that kind of thing. And especially if it's working with seniors, that's important. It's called elder law, some elder law attorneys.
Yes, open the digital Rolodex of LinkedIn, perhaps, and see who it is they're connected to. Yes. Okay, so if someone finds themselves in that situation, they can reach out to you as well to get connections to someone that can help with that step before then continuing to talk to you about finding the right placement for their loved one.
Sure, it can be before or kind of during the process.
Okay.
One thing to keep in mind is that if you go to the bank without, like, say you're trying to help a family member or a friend, and you don't know how much money they have in the bank and if it will cover the costs. I've run into this too, and especially if it's just a neighbor that watches out for someone, they don't know if somebody's got $100,000 or $20,000 or $5 in the bank. a bank is not going to say, oh, Bill. I mean, they are very cautious.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, their client there, they're just going to say, too bad. And I've had out of state kids that are pleading with the banks, and it's like, too bad, you got to come in person. You really are supposed to bring them in person. And if they're bedridden or recovering from something awful, then that is really complicated. So that's another
weekend at Bernie's or something, right?
Well, that's another reason to get that POA in place.
Yeah.
And then not to mention, you want in place, if you want to be resuscitated, that DNR form, you need to go over that as well. And I'll share with you the link where you can get those forms through a government office.
Awesome. So make sure you bookmark the tab for this episode, because those show links are going to be so valuable to you, perhaps if now or down the future, because those are all really valuable links that you have.
Yes.
So now one of the most important questions I might ask.
Okay.
What's your favorite animal with a tail?
Animal with a tail?
Yeah. Tail to Taylor. I get a little punny sometimes with the questions. And so, what's your favorite animal with a tail?
Gosh. I am so torn between dogs and cats. I can't even tell you. It has got to be 50-50. I have a cat that I just love. His name is Bernard. And he's a rescue. He was from a 100-cat roundup, they called it.
Oh, wow.
So when I got him, he was so traumatized that he would not come out. Like I would just talk to him, but he'd hide under the bed. Yeah. And then now, every morning he's just leaning on me as we're out having coffee and I'm watching the birds. And then my daughter just got a dog, a rescue puppy. And I guess he's part German Shepherd. He's growing like hundreds of pounds a month. It seems like, he starts out this big and now he's just huge. But I've enjoyed being a dog grandma, because I've had dogs in the past, but it's been a while. And so now I'll take him on walks. I take him on hikes. And so I really love, I love all animals, I have to say, but dogs and cats, I'm tied. And by the way, I know of the places in the valley that will take dogs, cats. Some group homes won't take cats or dogs, really, but cats are a little harder. But I know of some that'll take a couple of cats.
That's lovely. That's always so good, too, because that's a huge thing that can be a big issue. I've seen friends online trying to find placements for, their grandmother's dog or their grandmother's cat. And it can hurt everyone involved, because now you are losing that, other loved one in your family that you can't see. And then for some, like I know with me and my cats, like one of my cats, Xena, I call her my therapy cat. Like she can sense when I'm upset. She always just shows up out of nowhere when I'm upset. And if you had to get rid of a literally therapy animal, that would be tough. So that is beautiful that you are also able to help people, keep their loved ones together.
Yes, true. Yeah. I wanted to also mention something else that I'd forgotten, and that's that I am dedicated as of this year to posting 3 times a week at least a short video that is informative. And so if you connect with me on really all social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I'm sharing not only topics. I can relate to having senior parents. My parents are 85, and so it can be frustrating. We love our parents so much, but it's just like, sometimes it's frustrating what we go through with having to take the time out between our own lives with work and everything else, with appointments and reasoning with them about different things. And so I'll post topics just helpful to my clients and their families, as well as I tour group homes or communities throughout the valley. Like on Monday, I'll go to a group home that's in Mesa. A few weeks ago, I went to one of the most fabulous Scottsdale communities. And so that just gives you a second to kind of meet with the manager, have a look around, and then you could be like, oh, I'll keep that one in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always good to get a tour and see, even if it is just through video, it's something that still gives you a taste of what to expect. And then when you actually go there in person yourself with you, it's going to already feel a little familiar.
That's exactly right.
I already have seen this a little bit. I've already seen this concierge at the front.
With a smile on her face.
No, that's excellent. And I know I will probably be needing you, one of these years down the road, and be warned, it will be a stubborn situation. My siblings had already talked about how difficult it's going to be when it comes time for my mom to need to figure something out, because she's, Irish Italian, raised and
Yes.
very stubborn in her ways too. And I feel like she's
Yes.
mentioned numerous times that she'll never go in a home. But I know at least my brothers and I are on the same page of like, well, she's not coming in our home, so we're going to find a different home. So
Yes. So
so
I'll
you
be
know, we'll
happy
have
to help when that time comes. And,
Yeah.
and keep in mind, one thing to say to people that are resistant like that, you could say, we'll still come by 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I see people that are so drained caring for mom, dad,
Yeah.
husband, wife, and sometimes they're not even safe. I mean, you get these older ladies that have been married a long time and they think it's their duty I've got to help my husband up to the bathroom. And,
They're frail
they-
themselves.
they
or-
can fall, and it happens a lot. I mean, I meet with people that are doing a 2-person assist where the Department of Health Services would say you have to have a caregiver on each side, and it's like some frail little lady that's doing this. And so how about you take that out of the equation where you're not worried about hurting yourself? If it's your parents, that's happening. You don't have to worry anymore if they're in a senior living environment. And then, sometimes the spouses visit every single day. So you're still hanging out. You just don't have to worry about the care part of it.
Yeah. Do you think there's like a stigma? There's a stigma perhaps to requesting for help and going to a help of a senior assistant living or senior living,
Probably, especially since I know when I visited my grandma back in Iowa, there was one choice, probably for within 100 miles, and it was a nursing home. It was white walls, no activities. And, it is
right.
so
One activity
not
center
like that.
room where there's a couple card tables.
Could be, yes. And then another thing though, my grandma did this too, but she would, make us feel pretty bad. I mean, we felt so awful, she'd cry and, oh man, it was so painful, to see that. But then we'd hear from the workers, oh my gosh, she just talks like crazy when we come around and paint nails. And so I've seen that also, especially when I worked in a community. I would see people move in, they're doing great. There's, activities, they're making friends. And then I'd get the calls from, concerned sons and daughters. Oh my God, she said it. She hates it. It's so awful. And I would think, no, she doesn't. I see.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you do want family to know, maybe, well, I would have rather stayed home, but you got to take it all into consideration. I mean, are they safe? That's the biggest factor. And if that answer is no, you really have to find a different solution.
Right. But if the answer is yes, they are safe, then know that, you made the right decision and stick with that. Excellent. So other than, knowing to reach out to Heather and taking notes of all those great resources, what would be one final thought you would leave people with today?
I would just say, realize that, age is truly just a number. And I have met people that are, in their hundreds that are living their best life. They wake up in the morning. They're often thankful to be alive. They are listening to music. They're clapping along. They're having a drink, whether it's alcohol or non-alcoholic, at happy hour. And if they make the best of the situation, which is kind of like all of us could learn from that. Just realize you might have some really great moments here and there, no matter where you live.
Excellent. So just make the best of any moment and any situation you're in, and don't be afraid to ask for help way before you may think you need it, because things just happen and things can change fast. But having someone like Heather, again, a free service, which I can't believe the amount of things that you do for people, a free service. So if you have loved ones that are starting to age and you want to start thinking about the beautiful state of Arizona to have them live, or if you're already here in Arizona, Heather Hildreth of Songbird Senior Solutions, definitely reach out. So thank you again for coming by.
Well, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Tales with Taylor. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the Financial Potion YouTube channel to never miss an episode.